YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel. Thanks for joining me, guys. It means a lot to me tuning into my channel. I wanted to make a quick video about the. I want you guys to understand that the housing crisis that's happening right now in the city of Toronto, and that's happening right now in Sydney. It's just the beginning. We're just getting started. And we're starting to see changing in rents and vacancies go up, and it's starting. I think Toronto's going to start mirroring what's happening in Sydney very close. They're very comparable cities, but Vancouver is more also like Sydney too. It's kind of bizarre. Not really like Melbourne. Melbourne's more like Toronto, but I don't know. Let's look. Sydney rental reversal. Falling rents, rising vacancies as landlords hang on. So, rental reversals. When I brought this up a few months ago, people laughed. Well, no, it was about 2 years ago I brought this up. People laughed their butts off. So, if you're living in Toronto, right now in the city of Toronto, a lot of landlords or investment owners or whatever the hell you want to call these people, are at a negative. They're at negative position every month, so they have to drop $500 to $700 a month to keep this thing going. See, that's after the rent is paid. They still have to drop an extra $700 or $300 or $200 or whatever out of pocket negative position, and that's what's happening in Sydney, and I know it's happening in Toronto right now. Big time. But I don't know if vacancies are going up in Toronto either, because Toronto has a lot of empty units, like 98,000 empty units. So, fleet leasing executive Rebecca Crowley knew it was time to get out of Sydney when her landlord raised her rent on her 2-bedroom apartment in Surrey Hills to $900 a week. She and her flatmate were already paying $807. Wow. Her share of the account was 47% of her take-home pay. So 47, that's a lot, guys. It should be around 30%. But anyways. So, 3 months ago, the 27-year-old packed her bags and moved to Brisbane after her employer agreed to transfer her there for $300 a week. She found a brand new 1-bedroom unit in Hamilton in a complex that boasted a pool and a gym. Yeah, it's a gym, guys. I call it a gym, all right? And was only a stone's throw from Brisbane CBD. People here in Brisbane are so happy and friendly, it freaked me out for a few weeks, Crowley says. So there's Hobart right there, change in dwellings, plus 12. So, change in dwelling rents. Hobart, obviously, because everyone fleed out there. Everyone went to Tasmania. Canberra, capital. And then Melbourne, Brisbane, then there's Sydney and Darwin. Darwin's always been down, and so is Perth too. So, with the whole mining disaster, I love Sydney too, but I simply can't afford to be there. It wasn't that Crowley didn't try to live in a cheaper area. Before Surrey Hills, she rented a 1-bedroom apartment in Parramatta for $400 a week, but the bus ride to the train station and the train to her job in CBD meant 90-minute commute each way. Holy crap! As for her apartment in Mary Street in Surrey Hills, it is still on the market, with the rent not only advertised at $820 a week, but it also being offered as an office to attract commercial tenants. Wow. So they can't even rent the damn thing out. And that's what's happening right now in Sydney. There's so many apartments and rents are going down. She is not alone. Interstate refugees such as Crowley. Interstate refugees are people moving within provinces, different provinces and states. Same country, but not, within the country. As Crowley, who are bailing on Sydney along with the rush of new apartments for rent and falling prices that have prompted some would-be sellers to look for tenants instead, have all combined to produce a rare breed of the Sydney market. One where renters can call the shots. That's the way it's supposed to be. 2.8% of all rental properties in Australia's largest city are vacant. And that's a lot. Holy crap, that's a lot of properties. And the way things are going, that could go as high as 4%, a level not seen in the post-Olympics property lull of 2004, SQM Research, Lois Christopher says. So highest vacancy rates. So Avalon, Whale Beach, Bigola, Terry Hills, all these places here. Look at that. Whoa. In comparison, Melbourne's vacancy rate is just 1.6%, roughly where Sydney was just under a year ago. In Brisbane, the vacancy rate is 3%, which means plenty to choose from those who are looking north. There's a big standard of living gain in move north right now, Mr. Christopher says. The largest population and migration data shows while New South Wales had the biggest increase in net overseas migration, it also suffers the biggest loss of population throughout interstate migration. That's true. In contrast, Victoria and Queensland had the biggest gain in interstate immigration. So there's a lot of ghost towns, like ghost areas now in Sydney, because a lot of the Sydneyan proper that were born and raised there had to leave because they couldn't afford to live there anymore, right? And 30 years ago, you would just work your one job and you just go in and bring in your rent bill or your lease and show them how much you've been paying, and they give you a mortgage on the spot for what you could afford to pay currently, what you're paying for rent. Now, it's what's the point? You're never going to pay the damn thing off. Back in the day, you pay everything off in 5 to 10 years. Interest rates were triple. Now they lowered interest rates, made money cheaper, and gave you more of it to pay back. So it made it harder. You know what I'm saying? So if you look at the, raising interest rates to hedge against inflation, and then if you don't, then it creates this hot air bubble, and this hot air bubble has been going up for ages now in Australia. Ray White, property manager, Rachel Smart, who looks at the Ascot area in Brisbane, is getting inquiries from interested migrants, particularly from Sydney. One of her clients, Judy Fraser, and her family left Paddington in Sydney for Ascot a month ago to get proper family home without the expensive price tag. A lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are heading west or north because they're just tired of this. In Paddington, we live in a small terrace. We have small children. In Ascot, we get a proper family home. We pay less rent, and we have a pool and grass and a porch, Fraser says. Exactly. It's bang for your buck, guys. In Paddington, they were paying $2,000 a week for a 4-bedroom terrace. In Ascot, we're paying $1,400 for a 5-bedroom house with a double garage. Both Fraser and her husband had no problems finding jobs. Wow. Well, Sydney is well known for its pockets where new apartments rule supreme. It is not just these areas where vacancies are. There are rental properties short of tenants in established and popular suburbs such as Darling Point and Point Piper and Bondi, SQM research data shows. Avalon and Terry Hills on the northern beaches have the highest vacancy at a staggering, 8.2%. Followed by Caleville, Manderson Park, Rouse Hill, and Box Hill, 6.9 to 7.1%. In the northwest, these areas are undergoing bumper housing development because the arrival of the Sydney Metro. So people in the suburbs, eh? Why are blue chip suburbs vacant? Rising vacancy in blue chip suburbs is caused by two phenomena: cheaper new apartment stock in growth areas just outside the suburbs, and older stock which did not sell at the time of the catch rising prices. And there's a long one, guys. I'll leave a link below. This thing's super long, but this is a really good in-depth article. I took a good look at it, and this gives you pretty much a blueprint of where Sydney's headed. So now that the rental market is under huge pressure, vacancies going up, and landlords holding on, and a lot of landlords are putting themselves in a negative position. So, I mean, they think it's going to go back. It's just not, guys. It won't. It can't. It's because no one could afford it. You know what I'm saying? And now with the huge capital restraints coming out of China and the huge runoff of wealth leaving China is no longer happening anymore, the government there is doing a really good job keeping its wealth within its shores. Australia is gonna, big cities like Sydney is gonna have a huge problem. I even think Melbourne's still too overpriced. I think a lot of cities in Australia are still way overpriced that need to come down. But Perth, oh my, Perth, you could buy something for 320. No, it's got to come down another 150,000 if you want to actually make it. If you want to get something that's actually worth your while. You know what I'm saying? But, it is what it is. So I believe right now in Sydney, you're going to see a condo crash, a huge condo crash. I'm forecasting a condo crash for this summer in Sydney. So this summer, not my summer, your summer in Sydney. So I think there's going to be a huge condo collapse. You're going to see a lot of people walking away from, which is happening right now. A lot of people walking away from pre-built, people walking away from their deposits, and people walking away from a lot of, I think it's going to be a huge condo crash in Sydney, and then it's going to be followed by a housing crash because the prices of condos went way too expensive, and the price of homes are dropping now in Sydney, where it's a price of home might be at the price of a condo soon enough. A price of a home will be cheaper than the condo after. You could buy a home cheaper than a condo. So what is happening, people? So let's take a look at what's happening. I'll keep you guys up to date on what's happening here, but I think what's happening in Sydney is the same thing that's happening in Toronto. I think there's a lot of people that are in a negative position every month, believing that things are going to go back up. Comment below, let me know what you guys think.